Hello there, Mr. Sutton here, bringing you the IM3 1.3 Extra Practice number 4 solutions. This is based off of a puzzle, so let me show you the puzzle. So here's the original puzzle. The riddle here is, what do you call it when someone pays back a loan quickly? And that's what you're trying to figure out by doing this puzzle. So we've got these 12 problems, and we have to solve each of these systems, and they recommend the addition method. Once we get the solution, we're going to find that solution in this coordinate plane here and put whatever letter goes with that point underneath the problem number down below in this grid. So let's get moving. For this first problem, we've got these two systems of equations, and I noticed that I already have a y and a negative y here, so I'm just going to rewrite this equation down below the second one. And then I can just go ahead and add those, and those y's are going to cancel out. So if I add these, goodbye to y. 3x plus x gives me 4x, and then 7 plus 5 is giving me 12. Now I can divide both sides by 4 to get x equals 3. And now that I know the value of x, I will plug that back in. Over here is fine. So this is really 3 plus y equals 5. Subtracting 3 from both sides, I get y equals 2. So that gives me the point 3, 2 that I will now look up in my grid here. So over here, 3, 2, that's this b right here. So under problem number 1 down here, I'm going to write a b. For this second problem, I notice that in my equations here, I've got opposite-like terms. I have a positive 2x versus a negative 2x. So I'm just going to rewrite this second equation down here to make it easier to add these together. Adding these now, my 2x's are canceling out. I've got 5y plus 1y gives me 6y, and negative 9 plus 3 is negative 6. Dividing both sides by 6, I get y equals negative 1. Now I'm going to plug that negative 1 back in over here. So I have 2x plus negative 1, or minus 1, equals 3. And if I add 1 to both sides, now I've got 2x equals 4. And finally, dividing by 2, we see that x equals 2. So this gives me the point 2, negative 1. And if I look up 2, negative 1 in my table, that looks to be right down here. That is an e. So under spot 2 here, I'm going to write an e. And notice that there's more than one spot 2, so I'm going to put an e over here as well. On this system of equations, I notice I have a positive 5y and a negative 5y. So I'm just going to rewrite this first equation down below here, and I can immediately add these together and cancel out those 5y's. So doing that, that leaves me with 2x plus 3x is 5x. Negative 25 and 0 gives me negative 25 still. Dividing both sides by 5, I have x equals negative 5. And now I can go ahead and plug that back in over here. I'm going to have to do a little bit work here. So we've got 3 times negative 5 plus 5y equals 0. So that's going to be negative 15 plus 5y. And then if I add 15 to the other side, now I've got 5y equals positive 15. From there, I can just divide both sides by 5, and that gives me y equals 3. So then we end up with negative 5, 3 for this answer. And negative 5, 3, that's going to be, let's see here, that's 4, 5, that's up here. That's going to be O. That's going to go in spot number 3 right there. On this problem, I see that I have a negative 4x and a positive 4x in these systems of equations. So if I just rewrite this first equation down here and add these together, immediately my 4x's cancel out. Then I've got 3y plus negative y, which is 2y, and 18 and negative 6 adds up to 12. Dividing both sides by 2, we've got y equals 6. Now if I plug that back in over here, it's as good a place as any. I've got negative 4x minus 6 equals negative 6. If I add this 6 to both sides, negative 6 plus 6 is going to zero out that right side. And now if I divide both sides by negative 4, 0 divided by negative 4 gives me x equals, well, 0. So that's going to be the answer 0, 6. So over 0, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's u right there. So under spot 4, I'm going to write u. On this system of equations, as good fortune would have it, I have these opposite like terms with 2x and negative 2x. So I'm going to rewrite my equation down here and add these together. That's going to cancel out my 2x's. Negative 5y, negative 1y is negative 6y. 11 plus negative 5 gives me 6. And then if I divide both sides by negative 6, I end up with y equals negative 1. Plugging that back in over here, this is going to be 2x minus negative 1 equals negative 5. So that's really plus 1 right there. I'm going to rewrite that before I do anything else. Now let me subtract that 1 from both sides. That gives me negative 6 over on the right side. And then finally dividing by 2, we have x equals negative 3. So that's the answer, negative 3 comma negative 1. And negative 3, that's back 3 and then down 1, that gives me an F. So that's going in spot number 5. Now looking in my grid, I see not one but 2 places where that's going to go. So we have an F here and here as well. For this system of equations, number 6, I notice that both of these equations are not exactly in standard form. I mean, they kind of are. Normally, I'd want my letters on the left side, but they're both in the same form, basically. So although this is kind of cringy, I'm just going to roll with it. Now, looking at this, I do notice that I have a negative 3y and a positive 3y. So if I added these equations together right off the bat, those would cancel out. So I'm just going to rewrite this first equation down here. And then adding these together, those 3y's are canceling. We have 17 plus 8 is giving me 25 on the left side, and x and 4x gives me 5x on the right side. Dividing both sides by 5, I'm going to end up with an x equaling 5, and I'll write the x on the left now, so it's not making me twitch as much here. Let me plug that 5 in back over here. So I've got a equals 4 times 5 minus 3y. So that's 20 minus 3y. Let me subtract 20 from both sides. So that's negative 12 on the left side. And then finally dividing both sides by negative 3, we end up with y equals 4. So that's the point 5 comma 4 if I write those in order. And let's see here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Over 5 down 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't look, no, I have to go up actually. Up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Positive 4. So that's n, and that is going in spot number 6. On this system of equations, I've got a positive y and a negative y. So if I add these together, those are going to cancel out. The letters are not on the left side, but that's okay as long as all the variables are on one side and the constant on the other, consistently in both equations. So let me rewrite this first equation down here. And then if I add these together, those y's are going to cancel. So I have 10 and negative 6 giving me 4 on the left side. And then negative 5x plus 3x is negative 2x. Dividing both sides by negative 2, I've got x equals, well, negative 2. Plugging that back in over here, that's negative 6 equaling 3 times negative 2 plus y. So that's negative 6 equals negative 6 plus y. Adding 6 to both sides, we've got 0 on the left side and just y on the right side, so we've got y equals 0. That's the point negative 2 comma 0. And now I'm going left 2 and up nothing to give me an A in spot number 7. So I'm putting an A right here. And actually, there's another 7 over here, so I'll put an A there as well. For this system of equations, I notice that I've got opposite-like terms, 3x versus negative 3x. So if I write this first one down here and just add these together, those 3x's are now going to cancel out. And then we have y and 8y adds up to 9y, and then negative 17 and negative 1 adds up to negative 18. Dividing both sides by 9, I've got y equals 2, negative 2, and then if I plug negative 2 back in over here, we've got 3x plus 8 times negative 2 equals negative 1. So that's negative 16 right there. Adding 16 to both sides, negative 1 plus 16 is 15. And then dividing both sides by 3, I have x equals 5. So that's the point 5 comma negative 2. Over 5 down 2, that's bringing me to point P in my grid. So that P is going to go where the 8 spot is, right here. And we move on. For number 9, they've decided to up the difficulty level a little bit. You might notice that these two equations are not both in the same form, not both in standard form. This second equation over here, we need to get the y over to the left side. So if I do that, I'm going to end up with a negative 2y, which will cancel out with this positive 2y. So this is a good step to take anyway. So let me rewrite this over here, and I'll write it as 5x minus 2y equals 3. And now I can just add these together right away, and those two y's are going to cancel. So I have x plus 5x is 6x. 15 plus 3 is 18. And then if I divide both sides by 6, we have x equals 3. Next, let me plug 3 back in over here, just because that's where I've got some room. So I've got 5 times 3 equals 2y plus 3. That's 15 equals 2y plus 3. Subtracting 3 from both sides, I have 12 equals 2y. And then dividing by 2, we see that y equals 6. So I have 3 comma 6 for that answer. So starting at the origin, going over 3 and up 6, that gives me a y, and that's going in spot number 9. For this system of equations, I need to first put this second equation in standard form so that I have my variables on the left side. Now, just kind of looking ahead, if I subtract the 7x to do that, I'm going to have a negative 7x versus this positive 7x. Those would cancel if I added them together. So I'm also going to, when I move things around, just rewrite that equation down below here so it's easier to add those together. So now I'll have negative 7x minus 3y equals 8. And then adding these together, 7x's are canceling. Negative y plus negative 3y is negative 4y. 12 plus 8 is 20. And dividing by negative 4, we have y equals negative 5. Plugging that back in up here, we have negative 3 times negative 5 equals 7x plus 8. So that's 15 equals 7x plus 8. Subtracting 8 from both sides, we have 7 equals 7x. So that means x must equal 1. So that's going to be the solution point 1 comma negative 5. And over 1 down 5, that's going to be a t going in the 10 spot. And there's only one of those, so right there. For this system of equations, nothing is in standard form, so I'm going to have to rearrange both of these and then see what I need to do to get things to cancel out. So this first equation, I can just subtract 3x from both sides. So that'll be negative 3x plus the y that's still there, equaling 13. And for this other equation, I can subtract y from both sides. Now, if I do that, I notice I'm going to have a negative y versus this positive y. So I'm also going to rewrite this equation down here after I rearrange things. So down here, I'm going to write this 2x and then minus y equals negative 9. And let me go ahead and add these two equations together now. Y and negative y are canceling. Negative 3x plus 2x is negative x. And then over on the right side, 3 plus negative 9 is 4. So then if we divide by negative 1, we have x equals negative 4. Okay, time to get y. Plugging this back in. Now, this is going to make me cringe, because normally I would plug negative 4 in up here because y is already by itself in that first equation, but I don't have a lot of room up there. So I'm going to plug negative 4 in over here just because I've got more space to work with. Sometimes it's better to work a little bit harder to stay organized rather than trying to shortcut things and making a mess of it. So I've got 2 times negative 4 equals y minus 9. So that's going to be negative 8. And then if I add 9 to both sides, I end up with y equals 1. So that wasn't really all that bad. So I've got negative 4 comma 1 for that answer. So starting at my origin, I'm going left 4, up 1. That gives me s, and that's going in this 11 spot here. So we're down to the final problem. This one looks a little tougher. These things are way out of order here, although it kind of looks like standard form. You'll notice that we have constants and letters both on the left side, so we're going to need to fix that. But the payoff is a little bit higher on this one, and I see the word payoff is in our solution to the riddle there, so maybe there's something going on there. But take a look at this. We have 1, 2, 3 different spots where whatever we get for this is going to go in there. So this is going to be a huge win if we can get this one. So here we go. Let's put our first equation in standard form. So to do that, this 12 needs to move over to the right side, and the 7y needs to come over to the left side. So adding the 7y, I've got 4x plus 7y, and then I'll have a minus 12 if I move that over to the right side. For this other equation, the negative y can stay where it is, 12 needs to get subtracted over to the right side, the 4x needs to get subtracted all the way back here. Now if you do this, you might notice we have a positive 4x over here, so if I end up with a negative 4x in this equation, that's going to cancel. So let me rewrite this whole thing now underneath the equation that I just rearranged. So I'm subtracting 4x over, that's negative 4x minus y, and then that's going to equal negative 12. I'm moving this 12 over to the right side. So this, I think, was the hardest part of this whole problem, was moving stuff around. Now we see that we can just add these two equations together. So the 4x's cancel. 7y plus negative y is 6y, and then negative 12 plus negative 12 is negative 24. Dividing both by 6 here, we've got y equals negative 4. And then I'll just plug that in up here. So this is going to be negative 4 plus 12 equals 4x. So that's positive 4 plus 12, which is going to be 16 on the left side. Dividing by 4, I have x equals 4. So that's the point 4 comma negative 4. Make sure you have those in order. Going to my grid, I've got 4 to the right and down 4. That brings me right here to D. So that means in these 12 spots I have a D and a D and another D. 3D. There we go. All right, I filled in my entire letter grid down here. So now I just need to figure out what the words are in this to solve the riddle. Now just a reminder, the riddle was, what do you call it when someone pays back a loan quickly? So going through here, I'm thinking my first word isn't just an A. And then the next few letters here, I see the word sudden is next. After sudden, we've got D-E-B-T, debt. And obviously then payoff goes pretty well with that. So what do you call it when someone pays back a loan quickly? A sudden debt payoff. I guess that's kind of like, I don't know, sudden death. I'm not really sure why that's funny, but that's the answer.